I can exclusively reveal that Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has not managed to schedule another call with President Donald Trump, despite trade tariffs due to take effect in just 8 days and a Chinese warship circling Australia. 3 sources tell me that Albanese and his representatives have been desperately contacting Republican networks in the US, approaching senior figures to try and appeal to President Trump. The lack of communication between the two leaders comes at a precarious time for Australia, with Chinese warships circling our coastline and even conducting live fire exercises. Trump's 25% tariffs on Australian aluminium and steel are also scheduled to start in just 8 days. And the tariffs on Canada and Mexico begin today on Tuesday, US time. Well, we can see that time is now running out. The pair haven't spoken since February the 10th. Australian officials have been frantically trying to achieve an exemption on the trade tariffs, and they're getting increasingly panicked. I've confirmed there is no further call currently set between Albanese and Trump. Sources tell me Albanese has been trying to set up a call with Trump, but Albanese denies this. One source with close ties to Trump told me, and I quote, "The ambassador has been kissing my ass. Works every angle." And about Trump's attitude towards our Prime Minister, this source said, "He's, as in Trump's, ending the Third World War. No time for anti-Trump left-wing globalists." So that's a pretty brutal description of Albanese as an anti-Trump left-wing globalist. The Trump administration is well aware of both Albanese and Kevin Rudd's past comments about the president. And I approached Rudd and the Prime Minister for comment. A spokeswoman for Albanese said, "This is wrong. It's an absolutely incorrect insinuation that they have been rebuffed." Now, my understanding is that Donald Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, is not keen on the idea of giving Australia a trade exemption. And Treasurer Jim Chalmers downplayed hopes of an exemption when he returned from Washington on the weekend.
Oh, we're under no illusions. It will be hard. I think, as Penny Wong has pointed out before, this is a big hill to climb. It will be harder this time than last time. We had a very productive conversation. We were able to make the case. They heard us out. I'm not going to take any outcome for granted or try and make predictions or preempt where the Americans might land.
But Trump has said publicly that he understands Australia has a trade surplus with America. He's also said he'd give great consideration to an exemption.
We have a surplus with Australia, one of the few. And the reason is they buy a lot of airplanes. They are rather far away and they need lots of airplanes. And we actually have a surplus. It's one of the only countries which we do.
But Australia is the least of Trump's concerns at the moment as he deals with the fallout of the explosive Zelensky meeting. He's also preparing to deliver a major address to Congress on Tuesday night. Yet Trump has found the time to meet at the White House with the leaders of Israel, Japan, Jordan, India, France, the United Kingdom, and of course, Ukraine. Our Prime Minister hasn't made the trip to the White House since Trump's election in November. And if Albanese can't manage proper communication with the President of the United States, well, it's a terrible look for him, particularly on the eve of a federal election. It exposes the distance in the relationship between Australia and our greatest and most important strategic and security ally, America, under the Albanese government. It's a relationship that Peter Dutton believes he could manage more effectively.
Well, I've worked very closely with the Obama administration, with the Trump administration, with the Biden administration, and we have good relationships with a number of people in the 47th presidency in the West Wing, and we can work very closely and effectively with them.
There's little doubt that Albanese lacks the personal skills, the charisma, the strength, or the political nous to deal effectively with Donald Trump and achieve the best outcomes for our country. Now, I'm going to come back to that story in a moment with Bronwyn Bishop and Holly Hughes. But first, right now, as we go to air, Queensland and northern New South Wales are preparing for a major cyclone. It's expected to hit in just 2 days' time. Meteorologists say Cyclone Alfred is a once-in-a-50-year weather event, and there are serious concerns about the impact it'll have. It could wreak serious devastation. Residents could lose power and fresh water for days. 4 million Queenslanders are on high alert. Now, the cyclone is forecast to hit Australian land on Thursday night or Friday morning. The Bureau of Meteorology predicts that its impact would be greatest in Brisbane, the Gold Coast and the Northern Rivers, basically southern Queensland and northern New South Wales.
A tropical cyclone watch extends from Sandy Cape in Queensland down to areas just north of Grafton in New South Wales. Now, in those areas, we are likely to see gale force winds developing in the next 24 to 48 hours.
They're also warning that there'll be heavy rainfall and life-threatening flash flooding for both Thursday and Friday. And the wind gusts are predicted to be up to 150 kilometres an hour. There are also warnings that waves could reach 9 metres high, creating dangerous conditions on the water. Now, the Bureau of Meteorology say this will be a Category 2 most likely when it hits Queensland's southeast coast, and families from South Stradbroke Island are already evacuating.
Voluntary evacuations are already occurring on South Stradbroke Island as a precaution. Our emergency crews are also door knocking the at-risk areas across Sunshine Coast, Moreton and the Brisbane Bay areas today.
As a result of all of this, there is panic buying in Queensland supermarkets. The Courier Mail reporting that water has sold out in many suburbs and milk and bread are running low. Queensland Premier David Crisafulli and New South Wales Premier Chris Minns are both warning residents to prepare for the worst.
Alfred is obviously a major concern for New South Wales. Tropical cyclone warning that we haven't had in the state for decades.
It is serious and it is happening, and we want Queenslanders to be prepared. We are, and we want Queenslanders to know we'll get through this if you do the preparation.
Now, aside from the devastation of the cyclone, this could also impact the timing of the federal election. The Prime Minister was poised to call the election on Sunday afternoon for April 12. He was expected to head to Yarralumla to see the Governor-General either on Sunday after the WA election on Saturday or on Monday. And he's already deployed Labor staff to their campaign headquarters in Sydney. Sam Maiden reports today on news.com.au that Labor has cancelled their planned economic meetings this week, which were meant to prepare for the budget. She writes that senior cabinet sources have confirmed they expect the PM to visit the Governor-General straight after the WA state election on March 8. But if the cyclone devastation is catastrophic and if there's a humanitarian disaster, it would be unseemly for Albanese to press ahead with calling the election. The Prime Minister would risk looking heartless and insensitive if he puts his political campaign ahead of the cyclone cleanup effort. It's a point our regular on the show, Cameron Milner, makes in the Nightly. He says, now even for a bloke like Albo, tone deaf and out of touch, calling a national election would